Well, welcome to the 700 Club, and thanks for joining us. Today, we start with a disturbing story where China is using fighting words. They are threatening to incinerate Japan. They're threatening to attack Australia with nuclear weapons and threatening a showdown with the U.S. over Taiwan. These are just a few of the mounting power plays China is brandishing, along with its growing arsenal of nuclear warheads and long-range missiles.
Top Pentagon officials are raising the alarm over China's rapid military buildup. So can anything be done to stop the Red Dragon, or is it too late? CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke brings us this look at this rising threat.
This latest Pentagon report on China's military power makes some disturbing predictions. Nuclear advancements are getting the most attention, and it reports China will have at least 1,000 nuclear warheads by 2030. That's a much more aggressive pace than predicted last year. Even so, some experts believe China's true arsenal is actually much bigger.
Beijing has not been willing to talk to the U.S. As we talked, for instance, to the Soviet Union during the Cold War. China is just refused to have any discussions about arsenal size, arms control, all the rest of it. So we have to assume the worst. And I think that we should assume that China has far more than 1,000 now.
According to this year's report, estimates about the number of ballistic missiles in China's arsenal are also up. And in August, Beijing is believed to have started testing a hypersonic weapon, something Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Mark Milley, called very close to being a Sputnik moment, referring to the 1957 Soviet satellite launch, which beat the U.S. to outer space.
We have a case here of a country that is becoming extraordinarily powerful, that wants to revise the international order to their advantage. That's going to be a real challenge over the coming years. In the next 10, 20 years, that's going to be really significant.
While many of these military advancements have already been developed by the U.S., it's the speed in which China is accomplishing them that's most concerning.
We're witnessing one of the largest shifts in global geostrategic power that the world has witnessed.
Beijing is using its arsenal to intimidate others. In July, they threatened to incinerate Japanese cities. Soon after that, they threatened to go after Australia with nukes. They have periodically and in an unprovoked fashion threatened the United States.
China state media recently warned that a military showdown with the U.S. will come if it attempts to block China's, quote, reunification with Taiwan. These satellite images show a mock-up of a U.S. warship in the Chinese desert, believed to have been built as a training target. China expert Gordon Chang believes not only is a takeover of Taiwan imminent, the communist power won't stop there.
China is preparing to take over Taiwan, but it's also preparing to take over India, to take over Japan, to take over the world. Xi Jinping has been using themes from China's imperial past, where Chinese emperors believed that they had not only the mandate of heaven to rule Tianxia, or all under heaven, but that heaven compelled them to do so.
Despite China's rapid military buildup, Chang says it's not too late for the U.S. to intervene. He's concerned, however, that while the military strength exists, America's leaders have not had the political will. Gordon?
Well, Caitlin, let's talk about the specific scenario that experts believe will be the one that causes a U.S. conflict with China. What is that one?
Well, Gordon, U.S. support of Taiwan remaining autonomous is definitely making the headlines. But some experts believe there are other scenarios that aren't being talked about. Chang specifically pointed out an accident leading to an incident. You know, China is engaged in very dangerous maneuvering, both in the air and on the sea, and something could go wrong. You know, just this week, we have a U.S. congressional delegation in Taiwan, and China decided to do some military exercises in Taiwan's airspace.
All right, well, in terms of China's growing nuclear arsenal, what do you think the U.S. needs to do?
Well, there's several things. You know, right now the State Department says that they are engaged in diplomatic talks with China, and that's important because right now China has this stockpile of weapons and no arms control. You know, the U.S. and Russia are a part of the New START treaty, which basically regulates the number of deployable weapons that they're allowed to have. China's not a part of that. And you better believe that if they continue to meet or surpass these Pentagon predictions, that Washington and Moscow are going to come knocking and want to bring them into those arms control conversations. Something else to watch. Right now, the U.S. is involved in a nuclear posture review. And what that is basically just a review of our nuclear policy. And China's nuclear policy is a no first use policy, which means they would not use a nuclear weapon unless first attacked using a nuclear weapon. We don't have that policy, which many experts believe has really helped to deter aggressors and keep stability. If that policy were going to change, it would be a part of this review. So experts like Chang say it's imperative that we keep it as is, especially based on what we're seeing from China.
All right. Well, Caitlin, thank you for the report. And let me just add to it that this is something that China is absolutely being bellicose. They are talking a very tough talk. Just in the past few days, they've asked their citizens to stock up on basic supplies. And in Taiwan, that was interpreted as get ready. They're getting ready to blockade our ports and blockade our airport, and they will be easily able to do that. And in that blockade, literally bring Taiwan to its knees economically, so that Taiwan would then sue for relief and say, okay, we'll once again become a province of China. This is something that the Chinese have had deep in their history, the whole concept that they're the Middle Kingdom. In times past, in both the Ming and the Qing empires, all of the surrounding nations brought tribute to the emperor in Beijing, and that was the mode of operation. They still hold to that. On top of it, they're deeply offended with the West, with the 3 opium wars that the Western powers fought in order to open China, but also to keep the opium trade, to keep Chinese citizens addicted to opium. And then the sack of the Summer Palace during the Taiping Rebellion, they deeply are offended by that. And then in World War II, the rape of Nanjing by the Japanese. These are vivid memories for them, and they absolutely want to stand on the world stage and say, you need to respect us. You need to respect us as the Middle Kingdom. So that is their goal, and they will pursue it and pursue it with all earnestness. In other news, no relief in sight from inflation. The Labor Department reports prices just keep rising. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That is right. Thank you, Gordon. The Consumer Price Index rose at a higher rate than expected, up 6.2% over last October. That is the highest in more than 30 years. This on top of the Producer Price Index, which measures wholesale prices, showing a jump of 8.6% from last October, the biggest leap in 11 years. Soaring gas and auto prices drove the surge. Analysts say inflation will drive up energy prices this winter. However, the Biden administration announced yesterday it will not shut down a pipeline that sends crude oil from Canada to Michigan. Well, a nationwide rise in COVID cases has medical experts fearing a holiday surge. 21 states report at least a 10% uptick. As the Biden administration continues to push its vaccine employer requirements, some church leaders are joining governors and CEOs to stop the mandate. CBN's Brody Carter reports.
Even after a U.S. appeals court temporarily blocked the vaccine mandate, the Biden administration is pushing businesses to proceed. More than half of the states, several businesses, and vocal church leaders are saying no.
The issue here is a mandate that threatens to turn a religious institution into an arm, a coercive arm of the state.
Dr. Albert Mohler, president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, is fully vaccinated, and he encourages his students to get the shot. Mohler adds, however, the federal mandate tramples religious freedoms, which is why he's suing the Biden administration.
There is not an exemption for religious employers. That's why we have filed this suit. We're looking at issues in which the nation is divided, and we shouldn't be surprised that people of Christian conviction are divided. There's our basic unity in Christ, and so we're leaning into that, but this is out of respect for that difference of conviction, and that's the very reason we've done this.
Dr. Mueller joins a growing nationwide list suing the government. Biden wants all federal appellate cases consolidated by next week. Attorneys at Alliance Defending Freedom say it's possible the U.S. Supreme Court could step in.
We think this is a gross violation of the ministerial exemption of church autonomy, not to mention religious freedom under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act and the Free Exercise Clause.
Even after the Fifth Circuit Court temporarily halted the mandate, the White House basically advised employers to ignore it. While the courts quietly deal with legal battles, the louder political impact of vaccine mandates and masks remains. Regardless where Christians stand on the issues, Dr. Mueller says it's vital to be an example.
This is our responsibility 24/7. And Christians, some sooner, some later, are being awakened to the issues we now face. In an increasingly secularizing society, we're going to have to be ever more vocal, ever more articulate, respectfully engaged by Christian conviction. That's our calling.
New lawsuits against the mandate are coming in daily, if not hourly. The most recent filed on behalf of U.S. Navy SEALs applying for religious exemptions that the Pentagon is refusing to grant. I'm Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thank you, Brody. Gordon, these lawsuits coming fast and furious.
You know, ultimately be up to the Supreme Court, and we've already seen the injunction coming out of the Fifth Circuit. That three-judge panel were all appointed by Republican presidents. So we'll see probably the Supreme Court take it. Well, they'll take it up in time to actually have hearings, and a decision by the deadline in January is an open question. It is interesting to see an administration openly encouraging employers to comply with the mandate, even though they've been enjoined. That is something brand new. And it definitely sets up the administration for an ongoing battle with our own courts. That's not the first time we've seen that, but it is surprising to see it right now. It's also surprising to see in a democracy where elected officials are dependent on the vote of the population to try to enforce unpopular mandates. They're due for another election cycle, and it's amazing to me that they want to make huge numbers of people, we're talking 20, 30 million people, mad at the government for enforcing some kind of vaccine mandate, you know, that either you get vaccinated or you lose your job. That is serious stuff and will definitely make for a very exciting midterm election.